Today's brief has been created with open source information readily available on the internet as well as books. However, take it with a pinch of salt because some aspects have been kept secret due to said country's Official Secrets Act, and sometimes Wikipedia is probably the best place to find the information. So sit back, relax, and let's get into today's briefing. The Project 23560 Lidер class nuclear-powered guided missile destroyer is a proposed project designed to replace the current Slava, Yudloy and Sovremeny class vessels currently in service with the Russian Navy. The origins of the project can be traced back to 2013 with the Severnoye Design Bureau being awarded a contract to design a warship that has two options. One, to be a smaller, non-nuclear powered guided missile destroyer, and then one larger, nuclear powered guided missile destroyer. The latter design would eventually end up being selected in 2019, but in 2016 it was decided that 12 vessels would be planned for construction. However, reminiscent of the contract for acquisition of the Type 45 destroyer, this would be whittled down to 8. However, 8 ships, split between the Northern Fleet and the Pacific Fleet, is a rather major step down in the number of surface units, but I'll be touching upon that later on. With the design idea making traction, the project was halted in 2017, with a report stating that the shelving of the project in the armaments program for 2018 to 2027 had become apparent. But indication is that in the background, the design was also still being worked on and scale models were being produced, as well as a couple of tests in terms of how stable the platform would be and in-depth studies into weapons and radars fits for the ships if they were to be built. This process would then continue with both designs that were floating around at the time, but then would have the decision for the larger nuclear-powered ship to be authorised in February 2019. In this decision, it was decided that the ships would be constructed by the end of the decade. Now, based on this, defence analysts say that it's likely that the lead ship will be laid down by 2023. So that's the history of the design. Let's look at the final design. They are proposed to be a 19,000-ton vessel with a length of 230 metres, a beam of 20 metres, and a draft of 6.6 metres. Propulsion is to be a nuclear power plant, with estimates being similar to that of the Kirov class, with steam turbines that will turn 2 shafts for a maximum speed of about 32 knots. However, more is likely. The range is to be unlimited, like all nuclear-powered vessels. However, her endurance is about 90 days for standard replenishment, plus 5 days worth of rations. Looking at the warfare side of the ship, we are expecting that the ship's going to be armed with at least 100 plus 3 S-14 vertical launch silos, capable of taking Caliber anti-ship and land attack missiles, Zircon hypersonic anti-ship missiles. In addition to this, she's expected to have 16 SAN-21 Gambler surface-to-air missiles, 56 silos for S-500 surface-to-air missile systems, 3 Panzer M surface-to-air missile/gun systems, 1 A192 Armat 130mm single gun, and 2 Packet NK triple-launch anti-submarine warfare torpedo launchers. The radar systems for the ships are a little bit more difficult. No source actually states what they're going to be fitted with. However, my guess or my assumption would be at least some sort of phased array radar. Navigational radars most likely will either be a palm frond derivative or MR231. In addition to this, there is going to be multiple forms of fire control radar and target acquisitional radars like most Russian ships. However, take that with a pinch of salt. Sonar is probably going to be some sort of horse jaw derivative or some variant that is obviously newer and actually better. But take that with a pinch of salt. That is not what is going to be fitted with it. That's just my assumption or my assessment, shall we say. So what can these ships actually bring to the party? So for the 8 ships that they have requested to replace the current fleet of ships, they're not going to be a one-for-one trade. Currently, as of 2021, the Russian Navy operates 12 destroyers and cruisers. Looking at this, they're asking for 2/3 of the current destroyer/cruiser fleet, but rolling it into one distinct class. Now, this does obviously seem reasonable. I mean, single class, obviously you can chop and change with different ships to obviously keep them all working, and obviously supply chain becomes a bit smaller. But when you look at it very, very closely, as you can see on the screen right now, what you're going to get is, per fleet, a single hull reduction. And that is disincluding the Moskva, which is the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet. She is not going to have a Lider class replacing her. Neither is the current Sol Sovereignty, currently in the Baltic. So what does that actually mean? Basically means that what Russia wants is 4 ships per fleet, which means when it comes to obviously the future, and they want to go for the carrier strike option in terms of the Storm class, it means that more ships are going to have to be at sea with it, or they're going to have to be obviously rolling through their maintenance period very quickly to get them back to sea with this ship. Now, roughly looking at it, the Kuznetsov went to sea maybe once every 3 years, give or take, which is completely doable. I mean, you can probably have roughly about 2 ships per, 2 ships for the Russian Northern Fleet being operational to escort it. However, it does mean that there is the reduction in the amount of units you can put to sea, comparing to obviously what Kuznetsov takes to sea with her would occasionally be a couple of Sovs and a couple of Udaloys, obviously along with the Petavaleki, but that's a completely different story. So, is it really a good trade? See, that's the thing. I'd like to touch back to the Storm class carriers. Now, if they were to be authorized and built, the Liders would be an excellent carrier escort due to the weaponry and radar fits. But until any of that comes to fruition, I can't really continue with my trail of thought that I just spent about 3 minutes going on about. The fact that the Russian military is expecting to upgrade all of their Udaloy 1 class destroyers to the Udaloy 3 class standard, i.e. the Marshal Shaposhnikov with the switchblade launchers and the vertical launch silos, suggests that the Udaloys will be hanging around for a little bit longer than the timescale the Liders are expected to come into service. Current open source information suggests that these ships are still in the development stage, but it's a bit of a minefield in terms of what and if these ships will be built, or if it's not. Watch this space, because we'll find out soon enough. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you learned something new. Don't forget to like the video before you leave a comment, and give a suggestion of what you think I should do next, as well as if you have a question you want me to answer, please put it in the comment section on the pinned post. Apart from that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I recommend doing so, because I have some very interesting content coming out very soon. If you want to support the channel, there is a Patreon page, but that's entirely up to you. If you do so, there is some interesting perks to actually being a Patreon to the page. Apart from that, all you need to do is say thank you very much, have a nice day, and here's a sneak peek at next week's video.